all right? So we're going to cover the waterfront here. All I'll say is save America, kill the bill, save Joe Manchin. The guy is doing the Lord's work. Now, somebody else who's in touch with the Lord on a daily basis, that being Steve Moore, Committee to Unleash Prosperity Hotline and Freedom Works. All right, Steve, let's start with the Manchin shellacking the Biden bill. And going through this, I know you did. You stuck it in the hotline today, which was great. You saw my thing from last night. I mean, to me, that handwriting is on the wall. There was no ambiguity about, he had nothing good to say in this Wall Street Journal CEO conference in front of the whole world. It was covered everywhere. So I think the handwriting's on the wall. And, you know, I'll get your assessment. You're quarterbacking our Save America caucus, but it looks to me like pause, pause, pause equals kill, kill, kill. It's not going to happen until next year, and that will kill the bill.
Well, Larry, I think Joe Manchin is watching the Larry Kudlow show, and I think he's reading our hotline because he said a lot of the things you and I have been saying for the last 3 months. He said, to just summarize, because you covered a lot of it, but he also said this bill is bad for West Virginia. Larry, he said it's bad for the coal miners and it's bad for the natural gas producers in West Virginia, which is a major energy-producing state. I would say there's very few states that are bigger losers from this bill than West Virginia is. So he's looking out for West Virginia workers, which he should be. He also said the numbers don't add up, Larry, something you've been saying, that they're just using phony baloney numbers in this bill. And he also said to his colleagues in the Senate, he said, look, if you want these liberal bills, you got to get more liberals elected to the Senate. He said, I'm not a liberal. He said, I'm a moderate to conservative. And so why is this important? Because I think this pushes the bill into January, Larry. It gives us more time. The more people see what's in this bill, and they see the hocus pocus numbers in it, they see the inflationary impact, they see what it's doing to the work requirements, all those things, I think the bill is in big trouble. I agree with you.
You know, what's also important here is Senator Manchin has been saying this stuff consistently. I mean, I know some people are second-guessing him, blah, blah, we can't rely on him. Well, if you go back to that memo he signed with Chuck Schumer, which was last summer, last June, I mean, that's almost 6 months ago. All these things he said yesterday at the Wall Street Journal conference came from that memo. He has not changed his tune. So at some point, the Democrats are going to have to believe him, or they're just going to lose the vote. And he's been absolutely consistent, and I'm impressed with that consistency.
Well, let me just put up a yellow flag of caution. He also said at the beginning of the year he would not, vote for that $1.9 trillion spending monstrosity bill, and he ended up voting for it. So, you know, there's good Joe Manchin, there's bad Joe Manchin, but you're right. The last month or so, he's been on this message that it's a bad bill for the country, it's a bad bill for West Virginia, and you have to wonder, how do you walk that back, right? I mean, if he were to vote for this bill, how does he explain that he's voting for a bill that's bad for his own voters?
That's right. No, his political career would be over. Or, you know, I asked Senator Thune, I don't know, a week or two back, I said, Senator Thune, you're a big shot in Republican leadership in the Senate. Why aren't you wooing Joe Manchin into the Republican Party? There's that option. And, of course, Thune responded, well, I've been cutting his lawn every weekend. So, I mean, first of all, I thought that was pretty good for Thune, just number one. But second of all, you know, there is that option of going to the GOP. Steve, let me turn to another issue.
Well, don't forget, Larry, let me just mention one thing. Don't forget, I think West Virginia is the second largest pro-Trump vote of any state. I think it went something like 69% for Trump. So it is it's become a very conservative Republican state. Look, I feel like if the Democrats don't want Joe Manchin, we'll take him into our party with open arms.
Absolutely. Lots of work. No, you're exactly right. Now, on this other thing, you like this debt deal more than you know what? If you hadn't mentioned it to me on the phone this morning, I would have never looked at it, because I don't usually care about debt very much. I just want lower taxing and lower spending, which would create growth and less debt. But look, Steve, you got a problem here. Republicans signed on to the Democratic responsibility. They've now made this bipartisan. And let me go into a technical matter, okay? Remember, there's such a thing as the pay-go sequestration. Now, that would have amounted to about $400 billion of across-the-board spending cuts that would have taken place, but this debt deal takes that off the books. So I think that's a big loss you could have cut. I mean, all we do is add spending. This sequester would have cut spending across the board, including some health care services. That would be a good thing, not a bad thing. And they just punted that away. And I'm troubled by this. And I'm hearing now that my former boss, I'm going to call him your former boss, even though it wasn't exactly right. The fact remains, Trump doesn't like it either. I understood the one earlier, but this one has a cost. This one would have cut spending by $400 billion, and now they're going to put some phony debt increase number in that will, never expire. So why are you so keen on the debt deal?
Well, look, I take what you're saying, and I think there's a lot to it, Larry, but I think that it fulfills two objectives. One is the Democrats now own the debt. This is something Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden did not want. They did not want a bill that would pass with only Democrat votes. They will raise the debt ceiling with 50 Democrat votes, no Republican votes, and with Kamala Harris breaking the tie. So there's no ambiguity about this. The Democrats now officially own the debt,
But there are
which
10
I think
Republicans.
they should. There are
10 Republicans voting for it.
But no. They didn't vote to raise the debt. They voted to allow this bill to go forward and to bring it to a vote on the Senate floor. Now, the other point is we need to be focused, in my opinion, on what you've been focusing on, which is save the country, kill the bill. And this sideshow is now put aside. Now America can I didn't want a big debate about whether we're going to go bankrupt, whether we're going to default on the debt. It's now all about, do the American people want a $3 to $4 trillion spending bill that raises taxes, raises debts, all of these things that are so negative for the economy? I respect that people, conservatives like you and I, have different opinions on this, but I think Mitch McConnell is a pretty shrewd guy, and I think he got the best of Chuck Schumer on this one.
Well, Mitch is shrewd, but look, I don't like to be distracted by debt either. That was my argument a couple of months ago. But here's what I'll say. The clock is ticking towards Christmas and New Year's. So you know what? For the first time probably in my entire life, I love a mean, knockdown, drag-em-out debt fight because it postpones the big bill. And as the big bill gets postponed into next year, then save America and kill the bill. I love this pause, even if it's a debt pause. I wouldn't mind if we paused and talked about why the New York Yankees don't have a decent pitching staff. Anything to pause the bill.
Well, Larry, who am I to disagree with you and Donald J. Trump? So you make a pretty strong case for this. I think I'll let the people decide. But I just didn't want to be in it seems like every time we have these debt fights, you and I go back to the Reagan years, it always seems like the Republicans lose these fights.
Yeah.
And this time I think that we came out on top, but you make some very solid points. But the big story is Joe Manchin is saying it's very, very unlikely they're going to have this bill done before Christmas, before New Year's. It's going to go into January. And the more time you and I and others can go through this bill and educate Americans about how horrific it is for our country, the better. It's going to make inflation worse. It's going to make the debt worse. Wall Street Journal reported last week, Larry, the highest tax rates in the world will be in the United States of America.
Right.
I mean, we can't have that.
All I'll say is, save America, save Joe Manchin, save Joe Manchin, and kill the bill. Steve Moore, thanks, buddy.
I'm a Republican for Joe Manchin.
I know it's. All right. Thanks. See you soon.